I first noticed it because she laughed. Not a normal laugh. Not the polite kind people use during phone calls. This was the kind of laugh she only used when she felt completely comfortable around someone. It was nearly midnight. I had woken up thirsty and walked into the kitchen of our apartment. The lights were off except for the glow coming from the balcony. Emily was standing outside in her pajamas, holding a mug with both hands. At first I thought she was talking on the phone. Then I realized she wasn't holding one. I stood in the doorway and listened. "You're impossible," she said, smiling into the darkness. A pause. Then she laughed again. "No, he doesn't know." Of course he doesn't know. Something about that sentence made my stomach tighten. I stepped onto the balcony. She jumped so hard she nearly dropped the mug. "Oh my God," she said. "You scared me." I looked around. Nobody was there. "Who were you talking to?" Her smile disappeared for a second before returning. "Nobody. It should have ended there. People talk to themselves sometimes." But as I stood beside her, staring at the empty parking lot below, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had interrupted a conversation. And somehow, that conversation wasn't meant for me. Until then, our life had been painfully ordinary. We had been together for almost 4 years. We rented a small apartment, argued about groceries, watched terrible reality shows, and talked about getting married someday. I trusted her completely. That's what makes everything harder to explain. There were no obvious warning signs. No secret passwords. No mysterious weekends away. No unexplained expenses. If anything, Emily seemed more attached to me than ever. She constantly asked where I was. Texted me throughout the day. Wanted us to spend every evening together. My friends joked that she was obsessed with me. I thought it was sweet. Looking back, I wonder if I ignored things because I was happy. Because happiness makes people blind. After that night on the balcony, I casually asked again. "So who were you talking to?" She shrugged. "Myself." "You said someone didn't know something." I was rehearsing an argument in my head. I laughed. She laughed. The conversation died. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing odd moments. She would suddenly smile at nothing. Pause while reading a book. Whisper something under her breath. Then quickly stop when she realized I was watching. Every explanation sounded reasonable. Yet none of them felt true. With the first Betrayal crack appeared 2 months later. I came home early from work because a meeting had been cancelled. As I unlocked the front door, I heard voices inside. A man's voice. Deep. Clear. I froze. For several seconds I just stood there. Emily was supposed to be alone. The voice continued. Then she answered. She sounded happy. Intimate. Comfortable. Like she knew him well. My heart started hammering. I pushed the door open. Silence. Instant silence. Emily was sitting on the couch. Alone. The television was off. No radio. No laptop. Nothing. She looked terrified when she saw me. You're home early. Who was here? Her face became blank. What? I heard a man. No, you didn't. I searched every room. Closets. Bathroom. Balcony. Nobody. The apartment was empty. I remember standing in the bedroom feeling ridiculous. Like some jealous idiot creating drama out of nothing. When I returned to the living room, Emily was staring at the floor. You've been stressed lately, she said quietly. Maybe she was right. Work had been brutal. My father had recently undergone surgery. I was exhausted. I wanted an explanation that made sense. So I accepted hers. But that night I barely slept. Because I knew what I had heard. And I knew I wasn't imagining it. After that, I became obsessed with paying attention. Not spying. Not checking her phone. Just observing. The strange moments kept happening. One evening we were cooking dinner together. She suddenly turned toward the empty dining room. Actually turned her head. As if someone had entered. Then she smiled. A tiny smile. The kind reserved for private jokes. "What's funny?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "You smiled." "Oh." She looked genuinely confused. "I don't know." Later that week, I woke up around 3 in the morning. Her side of the bed was empty. I found her sitting in the dark living room. Speaking softly. I couldn't make out every word. Only fragments. "I miss you too." Pause. "No, it's complicated." Pause. "I know." The hairs on my neck stood up. I switched on the light. She immediately stopped talking. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then she looked at me. And for the first time in our relationship, I saw pure panic in her eyes. Not guilt. Not embarrassment. Panic. Like someone caught doing something impossible to explain. I started wondering if she was having an affair. Honestly, that explanation felt comforting. An affair was horrible. But at least it made sense. Human beings cheat. Human beings lie. Human beings don't have conversations with empty rooms. One afternoon I borrowed her tablet to order something online. A messaging application was open. I wasn't trying to snoop. But I saw a name. Daniel. I had never heard of Daniel. My chest tightened. There were hundreds of messages. My hands started shaking. I opened the conversation. The messages were all from her. Entire pages. Paragraphs. Questions. Confessions. Memories. Love. But there were no replies. Not one. Just Emily talking endlessly to someone named Daniel. "I wish you were here. I dreamed about you again. I wish things had been different." The oldest messages went back almost 3 years. 3 years. Before we had even moved in together. I sat frozen. Then I noticed something even stranger. There was no account photo. No profile. No contact information. Just a name. Daniel. And suddenly I realized I had no idea who this person was. That night I confronted her. I didn't plan it. The words exploded out of me. "Who is Daniel?" The color drained from her face. For several seconds she couldn't speak. Then she whispered. "You looked through my messages. Who is he?" Her eyes filled with tears immediately. That reaction hurt more than anger would have. Because it felt like confirmation. "Tell me the truth." She sat down slowly. Like her legs had stopped working. "You won't understand." I laughed. A bitter, ugly laugh. "Try me." She covered her face. I had never seen her cry like that. Not when her grandmother died. Not during any fight we'd ever had. This was different. Raw. Uncontrolled. Eventually she looked at me. And said something I will never forget. "Daniel isn't real." I stared at her. "What?" "He doesn't exist." I thought she was mocking me. "He doesn't exist, but you've been messaging him for 3 years?" More tears. More silence. Then she nodded. And suddenly I wasn't angry anymore. I was scared. Because I genuinely didn't know what was happening. Or whether the woman I loved was hiding a betrayal. Or losing her mind. The explanation came out in pieces. Broken fragments between sobs. Years before we met, Emily had been engaged. His name was Daniel. They had been together since college. Apparently everyone expected them to get married. Then one night he died in a car accident. Instantly. 28 years old. Gone. I listened without interrupting. She kept talking, sometimes crying so hard she couldn't breathe. She said she never recovered. Never truly accepted it. For years she wrote letters to him. Then emails. Then messages. Anything that made her feel connected. I know he's dead, she said. I know. But her voice sounded uncertain. Like she was trying to convince herself. I felt terrible for her. I really did. Grief can destroy people. Yet one question kept burning inside me. Then who have you been talking to? Emily lowered her head. The silence stretched. Finally she whispered. Him. I felt cold. So you think he's answering? No. The answer came too quickly. Too rehearsed. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't telling me everything. There was still something hidden beneath the story. Something worse. A week later, I discovered the truth by accident. Emily had fallen asleep on the couch. Her tablet was unlocked beside her. A document was open. At first I thought it was a journal. Then I started reading. My stomach dropped. The entries were written as conversations. Daniel speaking. Emily replying. Back and forth. Page after page. 4 years. Not memories. Not letters. Conversations. Detailed discussions about her day. Our relationship. Our arguments. Our future. Even our private moments. Daniel had opinions. Advice. Jokes. Criticism. And according to the journal, he hated me. I remember reading one line repeatedly. He's not who you're supposed to be with. Written from Daniel's perspective. My hands went numb. This wasn't grief anymore. This was something else. Something I couldn't understand. When Emily woke up and saw me reading, she looked devastated. Not angry. Devastated. As if I had opened a door she desperately wanted to keep closed. And maybe she knew there was no way to shut it again. The argument lasted almost 6 hours. Neither of us slept. Neither of us ate. I demanded answers. She kept insisting she wasn't crazy. I know Daniel is dead. Then why are you writing conversations? Because it helps. Helps what? Helps me survive. I remember pacing around the apartment. Trying to process everything. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me felt betrayed. Because suddenly I understood something horrifying. I wasn't competing with another man. I was competing with a ghost. A perfect memory. An idealized version of someone who could never disappoint her. How could I win against that? I couldn't. Nobody could. At one point she admitted something that shattered me. Whenever we fought, she talked to Daniel. Whenever she doubted our relationship, she talked to Daniel. Whenever she felt lonely, she talked to Daniel. Not me. Him. Or at least the version of him living inside her mind. That confession hurt more than infidelity ever could have. Because emotionally, she had never truly left him. Things became even worse after she agreed to start therapy. I thought therapy would solve everything. I was wrong. The therapist uncovered things Emily had buried for years. Family secrets. Old trauma. Guilt. Shame. Apparently her family had pressured her to move on after Daniel died. Too quickly. Too aggressively. Every mention of him became forbidden. So she grieved in secret. Alone. For years. Part of me sympathized deeply. Another part felt furious. Because none of that explained why she had hidden it from me. Why she let me build a future with someone emotionally trapped in the past. Therapy sessions often left her exhausted. Sometimes she'd cry for hours. Sometimes she'd refuse to speak. Our apartment started feeling heavy. Like every room contained unspoken pain. Friends noticed. Family noticed. People kept asking if we were okay. We always lied. We're just stressed. The truth felt impossible to explain. How do you tell people your relationship is being destroyed by someone who died years before you ever arrived? The breaking point came during a family gathering. My sister announced her engagement. Everyone was celebrating. Taking photos. Making plans. Emily looked miserable all evening. On the drive home, I finally asked why. She stayed silent for nearly 10 minutes. Then she said, "That was supposed to be me." I nearly drove off the road. What? Daniel proposed too. The comparison hit me like a punch. Not because she remembered him. Because she still measured her life against the future she lost. And against the future we were trying to build. I asked the question I had been avoiding for months. If Daniel walked through that door tomorrow, would you choose him? She immediately started crying. She never answered. She didn't need to. Silence can be an answer. That moment broke something inside me. Not trust. Something deeper. Hope. The hope that one day I'd be enough. The hope that eventually she'd fully arrive in our relationship. For the first time, I genuinely considered leaving. And the fact that I considered it made me feel like a monster. The next few months were chaos. Some days were good. Really good. We laughed again. Cooked together. Watched movies. Pretended life was normal. Then everything would collapse. I'd catch her talking softly to herself. Or writing in that journal. Or staring at old photographs. The resentment inside me grew. I hated feeling jealous of a dead man. It felt pathetic. Yet I couldn't stop. I started questioning everything. Did she ever truly love me? Was I just a substitute? A backup plan? A distraction from grief? Those thoughts poisoned my mind. My sleep disappeared. My anxiety became constant. I lost weight. Stopped seeing friends. Work suffered. Meanwhile, Emily seemed trapped between two worlds. One with me. One with someone who no longer existed. Neither of us knew how to fix it. And neither of us wanted to admit that love alone wasn't enough. Sometimes people love each other deeply. And still destroy each other. When the breakup finally happened, it wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No broken dishes. No betrayal. Just exhaustion. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The same place where we had shared thousands of ordinary moments. Emily looked tired. I probably did too. "I don't want to hurt you anymore," she said. I remember staring at my coffee. Unable to speak. Because the awful truth was that she already had. And I had hurt her too. Not intentionally. But by expecting her grief to disappear. By becoming frustrated when it didn't. We both cried. Quietly. Adult tears. The kind that come from accepting reality. By the end of the conversation, we knew it was over. Neither of us fought for another chance. That was the saddest part. We were simply out of strength. For years together. Finished in a single afternoon. When she moved out a week later, the apartment felt enormous. And unbearably silent. It's been 3 years since then. I've dated other people. Moved to a different city. Built a new life. On paper, everything looks fine. But some experiences leave permanent scars. This was one of them. I still think about Emily sometimes. Not with anger. Mostly sadness. Mutual friends occasionally give updates. Apparently therapy helped. Apparently she's doing better. I genuinely hope that's true. The strange thing is that I no longer see her as the villain. For a long time I did. I saw deception. Secrets. Emotional betrayal. Now I mostly see someone drowning in grief. Someone who never received help when she needed it. Someone who created an imaginary conversation because reality was too painful. That doesn't excuse what happened. But it changes how I remember it. Life isn't always clean. Sometimes nobody is entirely right. And nobody is entirely wrong. Sometimes people simply carry wounds bigger than the relationships trying to contain them. The reason I'm writing this now is because I recently found an old photo. Just a random picture from one of our vacations. Nothing special. Yet I spent an hour staring at it. Wondering how many moments were shared between the two of us. And how many included someone invisible standing beside us. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe grief doesn't work that way. I don't know. What I do know is this. The most painful betrayals aren't always affairs. They aren't always lies. Sometimes they're emotional absences. Sometimes the person you love is physically beside you but emotionally somewhere else. And you don't realize it until years later. I still remember that night on the balcony. Emily smiling into the darkness. Laughing with someone I couldn't see. Back then I thought the mystery was figuring out who she was talking to. The real mystery was understanding why. I never fully solved it. Maybe nobody can. But every now and then, when I wake up in the middle of the night and hear silence filling my apartment, I remember her voice drifting through the darkness. And I still get chills.